Hey guys, I had a really excellent comment and I figured it'd be a great video to make and put in the beginner backpacking series. And the question was, what do you do for hygiene on the trail? And when I think about hygiene, I try to think about it in terms of the items of clothing that you're wearing as well as personal hygiene. And they all kind of go together, and I want to talk about exactly what I do. First of all, I want to say I do not bring soap of any kind. I know they make those, all natural, kind of biodegradable type soaps. But for those of you who do, one of the best things I've seen for keeping, for example, your clothes or whatever you're keeping clean is either to use your bear canister or to turn just a simple dry bag inside out, fill it with water, and put clothes in there, and then kind of agitate it, shake it up a little bit using river or stream water, lake water, wherever you can that looks fairly clean. And as long as your clothes dry fairly quickly and you have a very warm day, that's a really good idea for kind of getting your clothes clean. You guys saw my most recent trip to Michigan. What I did actually is I just kind of dunked my socks and underwear in the Lake Superior, and I just kind of agitated it along the rocks, kind of make sure I gave it a good scrub. And that way, because I only carry one extra pair of underwear, one extra pair of socks, what I try to do is I rotate it that way. So every night before I go to bed, what happens is my extra underwear and extra socks get washed, hung out to dry under the tarp, or if it's really nice outside of the tarp, and I put on the clean ones to sleep. There's that. But dry bags come in really handy. You can use a bear canister. I've seen people use it for that. I've never done that. But usually what I do is just dip it in the body of water that's nearest or closest to me. So clothing, pretty important. If you use soap or decide you want to put soap in water and do anything like that, just please keep it away from the kind of natural rivers, waters, just because it ends up damaging fish and wildlife over time. And so something I try to stay away from. I don't use any soap at all when I'm on the trail. Some of the stink you have to deal with. I'll just start off by saying that. So clothing. Two items that I tend to, I bring one of them. I see a lot of people usually use the buff. And the buff is great because what it does is a nice like scarf, cover up your face if you're feeling cold, but also it can be used like a towel. Now, I actually don't like using the buff as a towel. I just brought it because that's what some people suggest using, and that's what I've seen some people use. I actually use a dedicated towel, scrub myself off, and so this kind of goes without saying. But when I took that dip in Lake Superior,
let's do it. Let's do it. Oh my gosh.
What I did is I made sure that I got what I call the hot spots, or the areas that tend more likely to be gross. And so you're talking like behind the ears, around the neck, those sort of areas. And I make sure I get a good scrub with a towel, as well as the other regions. I'm talking about armpits, nether regions, private areas. You make sure you get everything clean. And I know this, for some people it might be kind of funny to think about keeping yourself clean like that. But I think it's really important, and it really helps with overall your hiking health. It's one of those things where if you neglect to do some of these things, then you might have a more difficult time out in the backcountry. You might have a more difficult time hiking. Sometimes you can have chafing issues that come up because you're not taking care of your personal hygiene. So a pack towel I definitely recommend. Some other items for personal hygiene that I carry as well, of course, toothpaste, toothbrush. I now use the Z-Packs kind of mini toothbrush, if you will, that's in here. I'll show you in a second. But there's nothing wrong with just using a Ziploc bag and a travel size toothpaste. Some people will chop off the end of their toothbrush, but pretty important. I use this mini toothbrush, if you will, and what it looks like. It looks from Z-Packs. It cost me $2, I believe. And so what it is, it's a mini tube of toothpaste. And what it is, it's a travel size. And so the nice part is that you can just keep this part if you want. But I like having a little bit of comfort. So you clip that on there, and there you go, toothbrush. And these are cheap enough. These are what, $3? So every couple trips I'll actually change it out. I actually just bought another one for another trip coming up here soon, and I just tossed it out. I consider this to be disposable, just something I don't really want to play around with. As well as what I use are, for me, floss picks. If you think about a luxury item, these are not very heavy at all. It would be more weight effective to carry floss, and I do carry additional, just regular floss. But the floss picks, just because it makes it easier for me at the end of the night. What I do is I use one of these, clean between my teeth, and cleaning between your teeth is actually more important, my dentist always tells me, than actually cleaning the surface of your teeth. The surface of your teeth you can always get. The hard to reach parts between your teeth, that's the areas where you have bacteria build up and you have problems later on, and cavities. So I use that. Where am I? Okay. This is my first aid kit, so it comes into talking about hygiene as well. I think about this as my first aid / repair kit. So you'll see I've gone over some parts of this before. Meds are in here. The big things that I want to talk about when talking about hygiene are Neosporin. Neosporin is always in my kit, just because it's one of those things where you don't want a simple scratch or a simple blister sometime to become something that's worse, and so I consider this to be part of hygiene. If I get a major major scratch or a major cut, this is going on it. Just something to try to kill any possible infection. The other thing I carry that is part of personal hygiene are these just little light floss packs you get from the dentist. I don't know how much these things weigh, but they're very useful for not only making sure that you keep your teeth clean in a pinch, and like I said, I use the floss picks, I prefer those, but also for repair. I can use this. Remember I showed you that on the back of one of my first aid kit items, there's actually a needle that's taped there, and you could use this to make a simple repair if you need to. Floss is pretty strong, or it can be, especially depending on how you use it, and it's something I make sure it's always in my kit. It goes without saying that I always, whenever I have a lake or a stream or a creek nearby, in terms of maintaining personal hygiene, that's something where I try to always take a dip if I can. Staying clean is so important. Like, not only does it give you a mental boost at the end of the day or the middle of the day, but you hike better, I feel like, when you're cleaner. And you just feel more human again. That's why usually when you hike and you come back and you take that first shower, it's really nice to come back to it and be like, oh, that feels really, really good. So I take a dip in mountain, lake, mountain, stream, whatever it is, at least once a day if I can. If I don't have it, it's not a big deal, not a big loss. But waterfall, sitting under that at the end of a long, warm day is just priceless. Of course, hygiene, and guys know that I am not afraid about talking about pooping in the woods. I mean, all you gotta do is look at my playlist. I'm gonna have to start here shortly of poop trowel videos. So toilet paper, always, make sure you bring that. Some people pack it out. As long as you dig a really good cat hole, which is I'm a big proponent of using trowels, as long as you dig a cat hole that's deep enough, 6 to 8 inches at least, I don't see a problem burying it. I know some areas actually don't allow you to bury it. They require or request you to pack it out. I've never done that. I make sure I bury it properly. Now, wipes are something that is really invaluable. At the end of a long day, it's nice sometimes if you don't have a water source, like I talked about taking a dip in a stream or river or wherever, if you can use a wipe just to clean off those major zones or areas I'm talking about, get them clean, that's what I try my best to do. Make sure you'd be surprised in a long day how especially between your toes can get really, really dirty. That's something I always make sure, if I can't take a dip, I make sure I use a wipe at the end of the day. It's part of your kind of end of day routine grooming. And so wipes are really invaluable. I usually bring, I try to gauge about 3 to 4 a day, and then I bring an additional day supply. It's something where I'm never, it's one of those things I'm willing to kind of take the weight. Some people have kind of dehydrated these and kind of let them dry out and then just add water to the wipes. I actually prefer not to do that. I prefer to just be able to grab a wipe and use it. So the final thing and the final item, and I'm sure you're surprised I haven't brought this up already, is just hand sanitizer. It's just something that you should bring. Make sure you get one with alcohol in it, or something that is guaranteed to kill 99.9999% of germs. Use it on your hands after you do your business in the woods or at a privy or wherever. Make sure, because you're going to have to eat your food eventually. I try to make sure I use it after that and before eating, just because you never know. And it's a good thing I keep a travel size around, and I even keep one of these in the car, and it's been really handy for me. Hopefully that was helpful to those of you who are kind of new to backpacking or hiking, and it gives you some ideas about what to use for your kind of loadout whenever you head out to the backcountry and you have a good time. Make sure you stay clean. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Peace. If you're really in a pinch and you don't want to use something like this, and let's say you have absolutely nothing, you completely forgot your toothpaste, you forgot your toothbrush. What I remember, my mom and dad, because we grew up in a third world country, if you will, my mom and dad often talked about using hibiscus. And there are certain plants, as long as you are aware that they're non-toxic, if you kind of cut a twig off of them, you're talking about a live twig now, not something that's dead, and you kind of make the end of it into bristles. It has to be a more fibrous sort of branch, but you can definitely use that to clean, especially in between your teeth and overall. But honestly, hopefully you'll never have to use that. But if you do, you heard it here. Hibiscus is what we used a lot not what we used a lot. My parents often told me about using and could be used for.